Intermediate Intuitive Tarot Lessons, Volume 4. Now we're going to talk about card facings. We're still on the subject of card interactions and how one card has a direct interaction and maybe even an influence on another card in your spread. Now a lot of people have asked what tarot decks I'm using. Let's go through them real quick. The Initiatory Tarot of the Golden Dawn, the Anna K Tarot, Tarot Lenormand, Universal Rider-Waite, and the Celtic Tarot. We're going to be using all of those, plus many more, on these lessons. So let's get started. So when I say card facings, I mean the people in the card, again, have interactions with other people in other cards. Think of your tarot spread as a movie, to where you have one movie star interacting with another movie star, and that could be in a positive way, it could be in a negative way, but you definitely have some sort of interaction. All right, so when I have card facings, I mean that one character is facing another character. They could be interacting with them, they could be observing them. Let's go through the many things that a card facing could occur. So as we know from Tarot 101 from anywhere, the Queen of Swords is a very non-emotional girl. She's not going to be very helpful probably to the Eight of Swords in this instance. She's probably actually going to either offer to cut her, loose. Maybe if you have a spread, where the question is, what about my relationship with my boyfriend, or whatever. So that's your question for this particular spread. This could be indicative of, you tied yourself up with this. You made your own decisions. You made your own bed in this case, and I'm here to offer to either cut you out or to give you some advice. So she seems to have a very serious facial expression going on here, plus she's waving her hand around with a sword in one hand. So and she's also not exactly getting up to help. So the question for you in your particular spread for your particular question is, what is the Queen of Swords offering in this case? She's clearly communicating. So in the question of what are they saying, that's going to be up to you, but bad or good interaction, that's going to be up to you as well. As far as the question of is this a one-way conversation or two, it looks kind of like a one-way conversation. It looks like the Queen of Swords is offering some advice, offering some help, or something else to the Eight of Swords in this case, and the contextual meaning is up to the question and up to the other cards surrounding it. So let's look at another example. Here we have the Hermit, and the Hermit seems to be shedding light on the devil. So in addition, the Hermit seems to be facing down a little bit. As you can see, his eyes are not open at all. In fact, they're closed, and he's looking down. So the question I have for you is what is the significance of the avoidance facing? Yes, you do have not only facing towards or facing away, you have avoidance facing. That's where you're facing towards the other character, but you're kind of, just ignoring it and not really taking it all that seriously, if that makes sense. So here you have the devil. He seems to be in his own little, haven over here. He's given the Vulcan peace sign and all this other good stuff. But part of the interaction here you have is the Hermit is shining his light on the devil. He has his light directly pointed to the devil, and he's shining his light on the devil. This could be in a reading where you have some sort of an evil influence, or you have a bad influence in regards to the question, and the Hermit is just trying to shed the light on the bad influence. At the same time, he is avoiding facing this. So it could be a matter of, you're shining the light on the bad things about this relationship or whatever, but you're not really recognizing it because you're not looking at it. So if you just open your eyes and look over at it, I think you would find the bad influences in the relationship that you had and be able to either move on or fix a bad influence or something like that. But it's very interesting that he is actively avoiding facing the devil, and yet shining light at the same time. So that's for you to, decide if that's important or not. Here's my notes here for is the devil bad or good? And, observation versus intrusion. It seems to me that the Hermit is just observing instead of intruding at this point, but he is shining the light on because he thinks it's important for you to know that there is a bad influence in this relationship, if that's the reading. So now you have the Page of Swords, which is looking directly over to the Four of Cups. And interestingly enough, if you look at the Four of Cups eyes very closely, you'll see the Four of Cups eyes are facing over towards the page. So even though he's facing away, he's also facing towards, which makes it even more confusing. So, he's looking over to the right, but then he's turning his head the other way. It's kind of like, okay, I acknowledge the fact that the page is here, but I'm turning my head because I'm trying to ignore it. So you have a facing away influence as well as a facing towards influence, because he's kind of recognizing that it's there. So when you go through your questions, what are they saying to each other? The Page of Swords seems to be kind of a lighthearted, a little fun, a little more immaturity. And then you have the, Four of Cups, which is the definition of, I'm kind of sick of this whole thing. No, I don't want another cup that's being offered to me. I'm either full of the cups or I'm bored of the cups. But either way, I'm have my crossed arms, have my crossed legs. My body language is very bad in this case. So you have both the facing away and facing toward influence, and you can go through your question and ask, what are they saying? Maybe the Page of Swords is saying, hey, we have a little bit of an immaturity issue here, because you're ignoring this cup and it seems to be stemming from immaturity. Look, here I am telling you this. Again, the swords are a very factual type of suit, so it's not going to be a very emotional message. It's going to be a very factual message. It could be introducing some conflict even over here into this. So it's interesting to see both facing towards and facing away in one card. All right, now you have the Two of Swords and the Seven of Wands. Here you have another instance of facing towards but not facing. You see in this card, she is blindfolded herself, yet she is facing towards over here with the guy defending himself. So it's a matter of, the Two of Swords, and again, we're going to discuss the Two of Swords when we get to obstacles, because the blindfold is an obstacle for her to see. But in here we have her facing towards the entire, defensive posture, something like that. She even has a defensive posture, kind of like a defensive body language going on with the swords here. So she's facing towards, but she's ignoring. So when you start asking, what are they saying? She's saying that I do realize there's a sense of defending myself, but I choose to ignore it by putting the obstacle here. So she's acknowledging it, and then she's ignoring it. The same thing you have over here, with the Four of Cups. So it's a very similar message here. You have a facing away and then an ignoring at the same time. So here we have yet another example of facing towards and yet ignoring. We have the Five of Cups, and he is kind of just lowering his head and looking at the cups. He's looking at the hand coming out of the pond, which I'm sure would be an interesting observation for anybody if there's a hand coming out of a pond. But he's looking at that, and yet at the same time he is facing towards the Three of Pentacles, all the hard work. This could mean, the 5 is not a very good number. It's kind of a negative number in many respects. So you could have a negativity towards work. You could have a negativity towards the task or the chores that are in front of you and things like this. So again, we have a facing away and a facing towards and yet ignoring aspect. So it's up to you to determine, what does that mean? So now we start with our facing away stuff. We have a very hard at work, 8 of coins facing away, and he's very, this is the apprentice, the newbie guy, creating the coins, putting them up and displaying them and working very hard. In the meantime, we have the King of Wands. He seems to be acknowledging something on the other side. So since there's no card over to the left of the king, I mean there is, but realistically there isn't, then you have him facing away. So the question, when you're facing away, is what are they saying? Is there any significance to facing away from there? Is the king, the King of Wands is a very active king. He's the most active king in the deck. He's going to be, a very active type person. Is he saying that the apprentice is not good enough? Possibly he's facing away because the apprentice has just gotten started and he doesn't want to acknowledge his work. So if you have a spread and a question of, give me some type of acknowledgement for the work that I've been doing, either in this job or this relationship or something like this, no, I'm not going to give you that acknowledgement yet. It could be, what stems from the conflict of the reading and stuff like this. All right, so let's look at some more facings. Here we have the Seven of Swords facing directly and shining a light directly upon the very sad Eight of Swords over here. So that could mean a very large variety of things, especially since he's holding up a dagger. It looks like he's been getting ready to stab someone. So my question is, what are they, as far as facings, what are they saying? Is he saying, hey, you have some potential issues over here, I'm getting the dagger up to show you, I'm getting the dagger up to defend myself against a snake or whatever. What are they communicating? What is the Seven of Swords saying to the Eight of Swords in this case, in this reading? Is it a one-way or a two-way? It looks here like it's one-way. He's extremely interested in her, but she's not very interested in him at all. Now, is it bad or good? I would say it's probably a bad interaction. And the second is an observation versus intrusion. Again, this looks like more of an intrusion. He's not only shining the light over to the Eight of Swords, he's also holding up the dagger. I mean, he looks very active. This could be a potential motion type situation, but we're just talking about facings for now. So let's assume that, she's just kind of ignoring him and the dagger and everything else, kind of putting her head in the sand is like an ostrich in this case for this reading. So now we have another instance of a very active Hierophant here talking with the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords is facing his direction, but again, he's looking down, so he's just kind of ignoring it. It looks like a very one-way conversation. The Hierophant has something very active to say to the Nine of Swords. What is he saying depends upon the reading and things like this, but just realize that he's holding up some papers. He has some interesting, maybe some news. Maybe he has some documentation that this person has forgotten about, something that he's been ignoring all the time and he's still ignoring it. He could be saying, hey, you're ignoring the bad relationship that you have. You need to do something about it. Here's the message that I have about that. It could be a religious type of message because of the type of the card or something else, but that's up to you to determine based upon the reading. So now we have the Three of Swords and the Ace of Swords. We have a very active Ace of Swords running to, grabbing a sword, flying over to type Three of Swords. This is more of a motion type card, but I just want to say again an interesting aspect of the Three of Swords kind of looking over, as you can see from this card, she's looking over to the left, but at the same time she's not looking over all the way. So you have a facing, but not a full 100% facing. So let's just concentrate on this card for now. So you have a full not a full facing, but a facing irregardless, which does have a meaning. I mean, it's very important for you to determine what the meaning is in the spread. If she faced all the way over to the other card, even though, let's say if it's this card, what would that mean to you? What does that mean that she's not facing all the way? Is there a significance in the fact that she's not facing all the way? That's up to you to determine. Now we have more facings. We have a very active magician who's pointing over to the Seven of Wands. We have a very active Seven of Wands who's more or less defending herself against the magician. So again, it could be an aspect of the magician is using his tools and he's trying to show her, hey, if you use these tools properly, she's defending herself against it. She doesn't look very happy. She's killing off people. It's kind of a positive magician interaction for a very negative Seven of Wands interaction, especially the defensive posture of the Seven of Wands, which could be important in the reading that you have. Now you have the Knave of Swords and the Five of Swords. Knave of Swords is kind of looking over. He does have more or less a full facing over to the Five of Swords. Five of Swords is kind of getting up, getting ready for something. You have an interaction, a very strong interaction here of the Knave of Swords. Looks like he's ready for battle. The Five of Swords looks like he didn't quite expect the battle. Looks like he's in his pajamas there and flip-flops. He doesn't have a weapon in hand. He has his pipe in the left hand, kind of a funky looking hat on. But my question is, the Five of Swords, is he trying to escape in this case because of the conflict? That could be interesting in a reading. You have a reading about a relationship. The relationship has gone kind of sour. Is the Five of Swords escaping, or is he coming into the window? I mean, you have either or kind of thing, but you do have a very negative connotation between these two facings. Even though they're both swords, the swords are a sign of, conflict and stuff like this. So you have to go through your questions with, what are they saying? Is this an active battle that's about to take place? Second question, is he trying to escape, or what is his reaction here? Is he coming in? Is he going to grab his sword from inside the vault here, or what's going to happen? What are they communicating? It looks like just a straight battle. Is this a one-way or two? This is definitely a two-way facing in this case. Bad or good? I would say that it's bad. And is it observation versus intrusion? I think this is intrusion. It looks like a battle is about to happen. So, it's just a matter of seeing the facing, interpreting the facing, and finding out what interaction these two cards have. Again, this is different from motion because you have no motion in any of these cards. You just have a facing, and it's up to you to determine what the facing means. And secondly, what is the potential action that's going to be taken because of this facing? A lot of times when you have, someone giving advice, like the Queen of Swords giving advice over here, maybe she's giving advice to the Five of Swords. The question is, what is going to happen because of this? Will this change the nature of the cards, or is it something that will make both cards just kind of think twice about doing something? So, again, this is Card Facing, and I'm Tarot Oracle, and this is your lesson 4 on Intuitive Intermediate Card Lessons.